I'm Albert Lee for Starlicks. Today I'll be playing a number of my licks and solos and showing the different techniques I use. First I'd like to tell you a little bit about my equipment. Okay, I guess we'll start with this guitar. This is a Telecaster, as you can probably see. It's one of about 4 or 5 that I have, and it's probably the oldest one I have. No, actually I have a 52, but this is a 53, and it is my favorite, and it's more or less stock, as they say, except for the finish is gone, and I have put a phase reversal switch in it. It reverses the polarity on one of the pickups so you can get an out of phase sound. I use extra slinky, Ernie Ball extra slinky, except I use a 24 instead of a 22 on it. I found that the 22 is a little too light for me, although, you know, in general the whole gauge is, the whole set is a very light set. It's fairly light. I tend to look for light Telecasters. I do have about 5 or 6 Telecasters. They're not all Fenders, but they're all very good copies, and I do tend to prefer a lighter guitar. It seems more comfortable, and the sound tends to be not as hard as it would be with a really heavy guitar. This guitar, as you can see, has an autograph on the front and a lot more on the back. Has a lot of the signatures of people I've played with and people I've admired over the years. Some of my favourite players. It take too long to identify them all. Some of them are fading, as you can see, but it certainly is a collector's item. It's very much a favourite of mine, and as you probably see, I have some paper under the strings there because I'm have a nut fetish. I file them down too much, and the strings tend to buzz, but that's what happens. To raise the strings there. But as I say, this is a favourite of mine. Right, the next guitar is another big favourite of mine. It's a Gibson J200 from 1958, and it belonged to Don Everly, and he was very kind enough to give it to me. It's a prototype of, I suppose you could call it a prototype of the Everly Brothers guitar, which was made from like 62 or 63, I believe, but it was more or less a copy of this Gibson, and it's a great guitar, and it has a lot of character, and I like to use it whenever I can, but I don't like to drag it around the country because it's very fragile and worth a lot of money. Next, I'd like to show you one of my mandolins, if I may. This is, thank you. This is a Gibson from the 50s, and one of the few solids they made. And I have a number of other mandolins. I have a couple of Fender 4-strings, but this is one of a couple of 8-string solids I have. And I don't play a lot of mandolin, but I do enjoy it when I do play it, and I tend to do it mostly with Emmylou Harris. She seems to really like my mandolin playing. Nobody else asks me to play, but she does. So this is always a lot of fun to play. I enjoy playing mandolin, but I don't practice it very much, and I tend to do my practicing actually on the session when I'm asked to pull it out and play it, you know. But I always enjoy it. Right, next I'll show you the Les Paul. I had a Les Paul similar to this in '61. It was the first really good guitar I ever had, and I've always loved them. And in a moment of craziness, I sold it and traded it in for a Super 400, which wasn't me at all. But I managed to get another one, which I love. And in actual fact, Eric Clapton gave me this one. It's one of his guitars, and it's a guitar that certainly is a favourite of mine. And I think it's one of the best-looking guitars ever made. It always reminds me of a grand piano, and it sounds like one as well. This last guitar I'd like to show you is another Telecaster, but this is a special one. It has a pitch bender, a B bender, which is a mechanism built into the back of the guitar, which is operated by the pulling on the strap button, and it raises the second string a whole tone, and you can get steel guitar sounds. And this particular one was made by Phil Kubicki in Santa Barbara, and it has Seymour Duncan pickups, and it's one of 3 that I have, and it's a lot of fun. It's different. I'll show you some of the licks you can get on it later, but it's a good guitar. Okay, let's take a moment to tune up, and then we'll get started. Right, we'll start with the bottom E string. And the A string, which is the 5th string. And the 4th string, which is the D string. And the 3rd, which is a G string. And the 2nd, which is a B string. Finally, the top string, which is an E again. Right, hopefully we should all be in tune now. I've been using a Boss chromatic tuner now for the last few months, and it's been great. I don't know how I've survived without it. You know, I'd always thought that I was perfectly in tune on stage, but I've learned since using this, having it connected throughout the whole set, that after like half a song on stage with the hot lights, you know, the whole guitar will drift about a quarter tone down, and you wouldn't really notice it unless you have some reference point, and I found this has been invaluable. Now if you take a look at the Starlix manual, we'll begin with lick number 1. Right, many of you will no doubt recognize that as the intro of Country Boy, which a lot of people think that I've used a thumb pick on it, but I've never been able to use a thumb pick. It always seems to get in the way, and I use a flat pick and 2 or 3 of the fingers, whatever's closest at the time. It's not really a pattern that I use, it's just whatever happens to be close at the time. And now I'll demonstrate it slowly for you.